Hello, I'm Juliette Mann. Welcome to Global Business Europe. Our top stories. BP and Saudi Aramco accused of cashing in on the Iran war after posting bumper profits driven by skyrocketing oil prices. The S&P 500 hits a record high after strong outlooks from Caterpillar and Palantir boost confidence in AI spending. Dozens of US states sue the Trump administration, trying to get the latest wave of tariffs blocked. And China takes the wheel on self-driving safety. New rules require cars to be just as good as human drivers. Oil majors are benefiting from the volatile market triggered by the war in Iran. British oil and gas giant BP profits more than doubled in the second quarter, hitting $5.7 billion, up from $2.3 billion a year earlier. That's his highest quarterly profit in more than 4 years. The Saudi oil major Aramco's second quarter profit rose 44% to more than $32.6 billion, boosted by higher oil prices. But the company says the disruption has left global oil stockpiles depleted. Aramco is one of the world's largest companies, with a market capitalization exceeding $1.7 trillion. The oil giant controls roughly 12% of global oil production, with a capacity of more than 12 million barrels per day. During the Iran conflict, Aramco has been diverting oil exports through its east-west pipeline to the Red Sea, avoiding the disruption in the Strait of Hormuz and keeping exports flowing at up to 7 million barrels a day. As supply routes shift, South America has become the world's biggest source of new oil exports, jumping by a total of 155 million barrels between January and May from a year earlier. Brazil, Guyana and Venezuela have led that growth. US President Trump has accused US oil majors of making too much money from the war, while Americans struggle with higher prices at the pump. ExxonMobil and Chevron reported bumper profits last week. Trump said they should give some back to the public. Well, Ellen Wald is president of energy consultancy Transversal Consulting. Great to have you on Global Business Europe again. So look, let's start with those results. BP profit doubled, Aramco up 44%. But a lot of that is the Iran war pushing oil prices up rather than stronger performances. If that war ends tomorrow, do those profits just disappear?
Well, I don't think the profits necessarily disappear if the war ends tomorrow. If we do see the Strait of Hormuz opening and we see oil production return to previous levels, I do think that oil prices themselves will come down, but that doesn't mean that their profits are going to disappear. We're still seeing very high levels of a disconnect between crude oil and petroleum products. So we've had a lot of refineries come offline, not just in the Middle East, but also there have been some major attacks on Russian refineries. And so refinery capacity is actually quite strained. And so there will still be areas to make money in this interim. So while crude oil prices may come down, the price that people are paying or that need to pay for diesel, for gasoline, and for other products will still be high. And in fact, there'll be more money to be made as crude oil prices go lower. There will also be backlogs in terms of fertilizers and other products that these companies can produce and sell.
What about company performance? Because it's rare to hear a CEO say her own company hasn't been good enough. Is Meg O'Neill, the CEO of BP, actually fixing BP, or just saying the right things while the war profits paper over the cracks?
Well, I do think that the test will be in this, not necessarily the post-war period, because we're not yet in a post-war period, but I do think that the test will be as she continues to grow in this role as CEO and as the company continues, what can she do to have the company perform better? Look at Chevron in the United States. The CEO there just said, hey, everyone is getting bonuses because we've done so well. Where are the areas that BP can identify that need improvement, and what can they do to, make it a better company? And that's really, I think, what you'd want to be looking for in, the next couple of quarters.
And Trump's been telling oil companies to cut prices at the pump, given how much they're making right now. Give back to consumers. Realistically, can they even do that? Or is oil priced globally in a way that makes that demand more political theatre than a real option?
Yeah, I would say that that's really political theater because in many cases, these oil companies actually don't really have much control over the price at the pump anyway. Even though gasoline and service stations in the U.S. are branded with these big oil company names, they're not actually necessarily even owned by them. They're owned by other retailers who just license the name. And so it's really up to the retailers to set the prices. And right now, as I mentioned, we're really in a situation where gasoline and diesel, those supplies are very, very tight. And crude oil prices are lower, and that's not being reflected in the prices that people are paying at the pump because there's such a tightness in refining capacity. And until we work through this, until we have more refineries come back online, or we build more refineries in the United States, or Europe builds more refineries, or increases capacity, we may not see this resolved. And the companies are going to continue making money on this because there's simply no other way to deal with it other than for demand to drop. That would bring prices down. But unless we increase supply, there really isn't a way to bring the prices down.
Ellen Ward of Transversal Consulting, thank you very much. The S&P 500 has hit a new record high, lifted by strong AI-related forecasts from companies including Caterpillar and Palantir, and hopes for a deal to ease Middle East tensions. Mitch McGann is in New York. Hi there, Mitch. So what is behind the gains that we're seeing?
Yeah, good afternoon from New York, Juliet. Look, firstly, what you've just mentioned, the situation in the Middle East. Scott Bessent, the Treasury Secretary, was on TV here in the US this morning talking up the possibility of an agreement with Iran to reopen the Strait of Hormuz in the next couple of days. He said, we are in talks with the Iranians. There is a chance we may have a deal today or tomorrow to open the strait and move towards a normalised position in this conflict. So that has pleased investors. Brent crude is down to around $70 a barrel right now, down from yesterday's high of $84 a barrel. Another reason for the strong gains that we're seeing today is likely because of the strong quarterly earnings that we saw after the close on Monday. As you mentioned, Caterpillar, one of those companies, the heavy equipment business, says demand for its products is driven in part by the construction of AI data centres and heavy spending in the sector generally, but also more Americans, more cities involved in construction projects. The company's sales and revenue were up 24% in the current quarter to $20.54 billion. And Caterpillar, I checked a couple of moments ago, it was up 7% this afternoon. Meanwhile, results for the analytics software company Palantir were eye-opening. Its revenue was up 93% and it's reported a net income of $1.07 billion. Get this, its stock today is up 28%. So a strong result there for Palantir. But it was a mixed result for another well-known US company, McDonald's. The burger chain beat earnings estimates, but it missed revenue expectations. And one reason I found interesting for this is that it says many of its restaurants, which are owned by franchisees, are not correctly executing their discount strategy. For example, it says only about 60 to 65% of its system, that's all its company, has implemented its under $3 menu. So I think for McDonald's, it's about getting all those franchisees in line with the strategy.
OK, so that's all the corporate stuff, but I think you've got some data for us, haven't you?
Yes, we love new data, Juliet. This morning we found out new factory orders in the US. This measures the change in total value of new purchase orders placed with manufacturers. It fell by 0.3% in July, indicating a slight contraction, but it was better than June's figure of minus 1.1%. We also have new figures today on the US trade balance, which shows that the US trade deficit narrowed in June. It was the first time since the start of the year that imports fell. And just finally, something to watch out for later today. It's something we've been talking about a lot in the last couple of months. SpaceX is going to report its earnings, so investors will get to hear an update from Elon Musk on the business later today. SpaceX is actually down 11% from its IPO price when it launched back in June, so Elon Musk likely to discuss that as well.
Thanks, Mitch. Mitch McGann, our correspondent in New York. China's service imports and exports reached $557 billion US dollars in the first half of 2026. The Ministry of Commerce says that is an 8.3% increase compared to a year ago. Travel services led the growth, with exports jumping more than 31%. Meanwhile, knowledge-intensive services continue to gain ground, accounting for 44% of China's total services trade. Singapore's Grab Holdings reported 22% year-on-year growth in its second quarter to reach $997 million in revenue. The results prompted the digital services provider, which evolved from a taxi-hailing app, to raise its full-year forecast to over $4 billion in total revenue. HSBC has reported second quarter pre-tax profits of just over $10 billion, a 60% year-on-year rise. The lender said wealth management fees, its insurance business and higher interest rates all contributed to the success. Online fast fashion retailer Shein is aiming for a $30 to $40 billion valuation in a Hong Kong initial public offering. Reports suggest the company plans to launch as early as mid-August. If the target is reached, it will put Shein on a similar footing to Sweden's H&M, but well below brands like Uniqlo and Zara. A coalition of 25 Democratic-led states are suing the Trump administration. They argue the president overstepped his authority by imposing tariffs on goods from dozens of the United States trading partners. They're asking a federal trade court to block the tariffs, rule them unlawful, and refund any already paid. Well, our correspondent James Goodison is in Washington. Hi there, great to see you, James. So, tell us a little bit more about this lawsuit.
Yes, this is the latest court headache for President Trump when it comes to tariffs. It's in the U.S. Court of International Trade. And effectively, these states are accusing him of exceeding the law's authority when he actioned this under Section 301 of the Trade Act. That effectively allows the president to impose tariffs over unfair trade practices. Now, President Trump says he's using this act and because of alleged use of forced labour in various countries. It is worth noting he only did this after prior trade penalties had either expired or been invalidated by other courts. Now, these states accuse President Trump of using those allegations of forced labour as a pretext to continue its, in their words, illegal tariff scheme. The White House says the administration was using lawful authority to crack down on practices that burden American commerce. Currently, when it comes to tariffs, there's either 10 or 12.5% on 60 economies, including China and the European Union. And this is effectively President Trump's third attempt at tariffs. He was blocked twice before by both the Supreme Court and the court considering this case. We'll wait to see the outcome, but this has been a constant sign of President Trump's second term, trying to go through tariffs and also having to deal with his actions in the courts.
James, I want to hear more about what's happening at the White House. Some bosses from some of the top AI companies are heading there, right?
Yeah, big hitters, really. Meta, of course, own Facebook, Instagram, Anthropic. They make Claude, OpenAI, who, of course, make ChatGPT, and Google. They're all at the White House, and it's to discuss quite a concerning thing, specifically voluntary government safety testing for their most advanced AI models. Because recently, both Anthropic and OpenAI have said that their most advanced tools, when they've been sort of given a test, they've actually breached other companies' firewalls. So a huge amount of concern about what AI could do and how it could revolutionise cyber attacks. We don't know exactly what these tests will look like, but clearly the government taking it seriously as a matter of national security because of the implications of advanced AI managing to hack other companies.
James Goodison in Washington, D.C., thank you very much. It was supposed to be a symbol of cross-border relations. Instead, the opening of a new bridge linking the US and Canada is highlighting the growing tensions between the countries. Our correspondent Karina Huber reports.
Canadian officials gathered to inaugurate the Gordie Howe International Bridge, linking Windsor, Ontario with Detroit, Michigan, two cities at the heart of North America's auto industry. The crossing was envisioned as a symbol of the deep economic and cultural ties between Canada and the United States. Instead, it has become a reminder of a relationship increasingly defined by trade disputes.
Our relationship has been challenged over the last few years, and President Trump has threatened new tariffs just this month. But Team Canada has never been more united.
U.S. officials were disinvited from the opening ceremony after President Trump announced 50% tariffs on nearly $20 billion worth of Canadian imports. The White House says the tariffs are a response to Canada's restrictions on U.S. alcohol and what it describes as discriminatory policies affecting the American auto and dairy industries.
Canada's been very, very tough on us over the years, for many years, and no other president's done anything about it.
The latest tariff move comes as Canada tries to renegotiate its free trade agreement with the United States and Mexico. After a month ago, President Trump said the U.S. would not extend the agreement in its current version. The bridge has come to symbolize the complications in negotiations under the Trump administration. The 6-lane bridge took 8 years to build at a cost of $4.7 billion US dollars, entirely financed by Canada under a unique bilateral agreement. In return, Canada would collect all toll revenue until construction costs were recovered, after which the two countries would split future revenues. But only months before the bridge was set to open, President Trump demanded a new deal, threatening to block the opening without one. The new terms that followed give the United States a share of toll revenues immediately and run for the next 15 years.
I don't think anybody thought this would be weaponized, particularly because we paid for it. And it benefits both sides equally.
Canadian Prime Minister Mark Carney ultimately agreed to Trump's revised terms, prompting criticism from opponents who argued he'd conceded too much. Economist Julian Karagesian says the Prime Minister had little choice, arguing that opening the bridge was ultimately in Canada's national interest. With the United States buying roughly 67% of Canada's merchandise exports, Trump understands the leverage Washington holds in the relationship.
They need us to survive. Without us, there's no way they can survive.
Karagesian says Canada's challenge is to reduce that dependence over time by expanding trade beyond its largest customer.
We are 41 million people with the second largest inheritance of natural resources, energy and land and water in the world after Russia. And so we have, to use Trumpian language, we have cards.
Karagesian says Canada has to play the long game by diversifying its export markets and building new bridges with the rest of the world. Karina Huber, CGTN, Montreal.
This is Global Business Europe. Still ahead.
These robots know how to party.
But they won't get to boogie for long, because soon they'll be put to work.
Everything is a business story.
Welcome back to Global Business Europe with me, Juliette Mann. The headlines. BP and Saudi Aramco accused of cashing in on the Iran war after posting bumper profits driven by skyrocketing oil prices. And the S&P 500 hits a record high after strong outlooks from Caterpillar and Palantir boost confidence in AI spending. China has unveiled its first mandatory national safety standard for autonomous vehicles. It covers Level 3 and Level 4 self-driving systems. Level 3 means the car can drive itself under certain conditions, with a human ready to take over if needed. Level 4 vehicles can drive without a driver, but only in approved areas. The new rules aim to create a single safety framework before the technology is rolled out more widely. Now, the standards tighten rules around driver responsibility. Level 3 vehicles must monitor whether drivers are ready to take over. Well, manufacturers must clearly explain how the technology works, its limits, and when drivers are responsible. Automakers must also prove their systems are safe before deployment, and that includes risk management, simulation testing, closed-track trials, and real-world road testing throughout a vehicle's life cycle. Xing Lei is founder of AutoXing and former chief editor of China Auto Review. It's great to have you on the programme. Now, these mandatory standards, are they going to give consumers more confidence, do you think, or do they raise that bar so high that companies won't be able to keep up?
Oh, well, I think the answer is yes. And just to stress the significance of this standards, the key word is mandatory. And the industry has actually been looking forward to this being released. And mandatory safety baseline framework foundation for the commercial rollout of the level 3 and the level 4 systems that you just explained what they are. And especially with the human-machine interaction, I think, which has recently been a topic of how the system will for sure know the driver will be able to take over in this level 3 conditional automated driving. I think this will help both the industry, the automakers, and the consumers, because the automakers will have to require letting the consumers know through various means, manuals, websites, in-vehicle displays, that they need to be ready.
Now, China already has autonomous vehicles on the road, and now it's writing the rules to match. Europe, meanwhile, has the rules, but very few vehicles to apply them to. Which approach do you think is most likely to win out?
Well, currently China is in the lead, but every region of the world is different. China is more where there's practical systems put into use, followed by now the mandatory level 4, 3, and 4 regulations. But there's one important regulation in Europe, which is the DCAS 171 Series 02, which actually a lot of the automakers need to meet in order to deploy the level 2 plus systems, which one of the Chinese automakers recently, they're claiming to be the first one that's trying to get approval for that, which is at the end of this year. And once you get that approval, whatever is available in the Chinese market of that system can be deployed into the European regions. I think that's important to point out.
Okay. Julie, absolute pleasure talking to you. Thank you very much. Humanoid robots could be part of our daily lives within a decade, according to new research by Morgan Stanley. The investment bank estimates there will be 13 million robotic workers by 2035 in a market estimated to be worth billions. But will we trust them? Our correspondent Michael Murillo reports.
These robots know how to party. But pretty soon, they'll all have to get a job. Chinese firm Agibot builds these machines, which are driven by artificial intelligence. The company held a conference in London, announcing that its robots could soon work in European shops and factories.
It's like a person, when he grows in this country, when he grows in this factory, and he will be very familiar and adapted in this, localized environment.
If European governments give the go-ahead, humanoid robots could eventually work in the home, helping with household tasks and even looking after children.
The humanoid robots develop so fast, and it can learn many things as we train them. So I think I'm very confident about the future. Yeah.
But most robots are made in China or the United States. And the fact is, many consumers are nervous about foreign tech firms. Just this year, Politico Europe conducted a poll across 6 countries in Western and Central Europe. It asked how people felt about tech companies from the US and China. 80% said they worry about privacy and the way companies handle their personal data. People love public spaces like this because they want to form connections. And trust is the basis of any connection. So the challenge for robotics firms is simple but also complicated. They have to get people to trust them. Robot makers could highlight the data privacy laws in the European Union. They apply to all companies that handle Europeans' data, even if those companies are based outside Europe. But tech analyst Arthur Goldstuck says foreign firms don't need a massive public relations campaign. He thinks people will learn to trust robots as they use them more and more. It's a trend we've already seen with mobile phone brands, which build millions of handsets outside their own countries.
Most of those devices are actually manufactured in China, and people accept that a Chinese factory is producing a Samsung or an Apple phone, so already they are being almost required to trust the technology that's coming from the East. And a similar situation will emerge with regard to robots.
Back at the Agibot conference, the dancing continues. And if you think about it, the relationship between humans and robots is a bit like a dance. It only really works if we're moving to the same beat. Michael Marilia, CGTN, London.
The headlines again. BP and Saudi Aramco accused of cashing in on the Iran war after posting bumper profits driven by skyrocketing oil prices. The S&P 500 hits a record high after strong outlooks from Caterpillar and Palantir boost confidence in AI spending. Dozens of US states sue the Trump administration, trying to get the latest wave of tariffs blocked. And that is it for Global Business Europe. Thanks for watching. Coming up next on CGTN Africa Live. We'll see you again tomorrow, same time, same place. From all the team here in London. Goodbye.